Hi guys, so here at Caffeine and Machine, just thought I'd give you a video tour of the E55 AMG Kompressor. It's 2004, picked it up about a year ago. It's only done 55,000 miles, so I've done only 3,000 or a bit less myself. So it's one of the lowest miles E55 in the country, especially in the estate version. In the estate they only made 1,444 in the whole world. So it's a pretty rare car. The saloons were quite a bit more common. You tend to see quite a few more saloons on the classifieds. The estates are pretty rare. You never see really more than one or two for sale in the UK. I've always liked fast estates personally, so I usually go for the saloon myself. So this is obviously fully stock on the outside. One of the benefits to this, they obviously got a massive boot, but it does give you quite a bit more traction at the back because it's about 125 kg heavier than the saloon. This one's also got the 7-seat option. I've just took one of the seat cushions out because it's on a trickle charger at home, but the other seat, you can see the headrest for the back seats in there. The other base would sit here, but I've took them out because I've had the car on a trickle charger. You can see the boot's pretty massive. In fact, it's one of the largest boots in any estate you can get, which makes it practical as well as fast. So yeah, you could get this with the self-closing boot where you press the button. This one doesn't have it, but it has got it does latch automatically when you just drop it like that. So being one of the older AMGs, it's got actual tailpipes, not fake tailpipes. They're actually connected to the exhaust, not like the new ones would have fake tips on them. So yeah, the body's pretty tidy on this, no corrosion, thankfully. I'm going to give it a good wash when I get home to get rid of all that road salt. So back in the day, AMGs were quite kind of subtle, even more subtle than they are today. So this is basically just has an avant-garde stroke AMG style body kit on it, which really just is kind of a more sporty front bumper and side skirts, and then it's got the AMG wheels. One of the special things about this is the brakes. It's got 360mm front brakes, 330mm rear brakes. It's got 8 piston front calipers, which are the same calipers on the SLR. So the brakes are very powerful. Only problem though is there's very little brake feel because it's a brake-by-wire system. So you absolutely have no connection between the pedal and the brake. So the brake feel is non-existent, but they're very powerful. And they also dry themselves in the wet. It's got like an auto drying function, which is pretty cool. So we'll just open the bonnet, show you underneath there. So being an older Mercedes, the body on this is fully steel. So it's quite a heavy bonnet, but that means, you know, the engine feels nice and solid. There's a bit of cleaning residue on the engine cover, needs a bit of a wipe, but it's pretty good shape for a 18-year-old car, pretty clean. There's the brake-by-wire system, which will need rebuilding at some point. There's your bad boy compressor supercharger, which is how this car pumps out 469 brake horsepower or 476 metric horsepower. But in reality it's probably closer to 500 because it's the exact same engine as in the SL55 and the S55 compressor, and they were rated at 500 metric horsepower and exactly the same engine. I think they just really downrated the E55 on paper because it was the cheaper car, and also because the E55 saloon was a bit lighter than the SL55, it was actually a bit faster. So the E55, I think, and the S55 have got a taller gear ratio, 2.65 rear axle, whereas the SL55, to make up for its heavier weight versus the E55 saloon, it's got a 282 rear axle, which you can swap into the E55 to give them quicker acceleration, because these things have got really tall gears. Fourth gear, for example, will take you to 174, so you know you don't even need the top gear to hit the speed limiter. Fifth gear on this will take you up to 220 miles per hour, so the gearing's mega tall, but despite that the fuel economy is still pretty horrific. You know, on the motorway, you know, you really have to be gentle to get 20 miles per gallon plus. Around town it will be about 12, 13, 14, dual carriageways, which you get about 16, 17, 18, but you know, you don't buy this car to save fuel. If you do, then you're a bit of an idiot. So anyway, there's your 5.4 V8 24 valve single overhead camshaft. So it's quite a simple engine. It's only got port fuel injection, no direct fuel injection, but that's good because it means you don't get any coking up of the cylinder heads like you do on the old Audis, which loses power. Obviously got your twin screw IHI supercharger. Down here you have your heat exchanger. So it's got the Bosch 010 upgraded fuel pump, sorry, not fuel pump, charge cooler pump, just to try and keep the compressed air cool that's being cooled by the intercooler that's beneath the supercharger. But yeah, these are quite solid engines because they've got no variable valve timing, no direct injection. Pretty basic but solid engine. It's based on the M113 5-litre V8 that they used in the S-Class and other V8 Mercedes in the 2000s, but it was rebuilt by AMG. So back in the day, AMG used to take a standard Mercedes production engine and then upgrade it. So they increased the bore and the stroke to take it up to 5.4 litres. They strengthened the conrods, the pistons, the crankcase, new valve train, obviously added the supercharger to get the extra power. Speaking about the gearbox, got the same gearbox that they used in the SL65, the Maybach. You know, it's quite a strong gearbox. Can handle a lot of torque. They're fairly reliable gearbox as well. You know, you just have to maintain them over the years, but compared to, for example, in the Audis and the BMs of the same era, they had quite fragile transmissions, whereas these, they can take a lot of abuse, although they may be quite slow to shift. You know, it was a solid transmission. So there's a walk around of the car on the outside. It's obviously a bit of a sleep because it just looks like a standard E-Class. It's sitting slightly lower. It's in Sport 2 mode at the moment, but it still doesn't look too aggressive. The E55 obviously got the standard E-Class front end. On the E63, the replacement car, that had a more aggressive front bumper and front grille. People do tend to put E63 front ends on these, but I like to keep it original, and I do prefer the E55 front, so I'm going to keep it that way. Here's the back seat. So the back seats have hardly been used at all. This car used to belong to a collector of E55s. So the back seat's tidy, got a nice 4-zone air climate control there. It's a good option to have. Got obviously nice room for a car seat. This does have ISOFIX, which is quite good for a 2004 car. The headrest would automatically flip down with a button at the front. You could get a rear seat entertainment system in the middle there, which would be a cool option to have, but obviously another thing to break. This one hasn't got a pano sunroof or a sunroof, which would have been nice, but obviously that would add even more weight and complexity, and then they do tend to leak. Yeah, I don't mind not having it just because, you know, it's a bit more simple, plus it keeps the weight down, because with the rear seats this thing is about 2,000 kgs. If you add in a panoramic roof, then it's going to take you almost, you know, well, you know, past 2,050, almost 2,100 kg. So, you know, if you want to be a little bit quicker, and you know, it's best to not have that. Here's the inside. Got nice heavy doors, closed with a nice lid. You don't get that on the new ones where the door kind of feels like it's a bit delicate. Interior is very nice condition. Got real Nappa leather seats. This hasn't got the massage dynamic seats, but it has got the multi-contour seats, so you can use that button there to adjust the air cushions. So you can adjust all the cushions and the lumbar support, the thigh support. You can also adjust how tightly or not the wings grip you on the back. So extremely comfortable seats, a lot more comfortable than on the new E63, especially if you have the sport seats. I've put a new Android head unit in there, which looks like the OEM unit, but it's got a touchscreen function. This hasn't got the push button start either, which is a cool feature. But again, it's another thing that can go wrong, so don't really mind not having it. That's your button to adjust the air suspension stiffness, because this car's got a really nice ride. That's to raise the car. Not that you really need to raise it that much because it already rides quite high anyway, but you know, it's a cool thing to have. You've got traditional gauges there. No digital gauges like on the newer cars. You know, the white dials, which look pretty cool, with the V8 compressor badge on the bottom there. So yeah, it's just a nice car, very comfortable interior. It's not, I wouldn't say it's very racy. This is an old school AMG. It's not particularly racy inside or on the outside. It's just very comfortable with few hints of being a performance car. It's not cold, so it's not going to be a cold start, but I'll just start it up. Hopefully it's not too windy. So it's fairly stock. As you can see, there's no kind of raspy fake pops or bangs when you start the car. It just kind of starts, and whatever the noise of the engine makes, that's what you hear. These M113Ks do have quite a noisy oil pump, which you can probably hear sometimes on the cold start. Let's give you a bit of rev there. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Let's take a walk around with the engine on. Yeah, when it's idling, it's still fairly subtle. It's not obnoxiously loud like the newer cars. So anyway, we're going to head off from Cafe in the Machine now, and then we're going to go for a little drive shortly, so we'll catch up with you in a bit.